Poor virgin Maid fell asleep in a billionaire's bed. Then this happened. She didn't mean to fall asleep. Not there. Not in his room. But when you work 14-hour shifts cleaning other people's messes, sometimes your body gives out before your spirit does. Maria had always believed in dignity. Even when life was unkind. Even when bills stacked higher than her hope. Even when her sister's medication cost more than her weekly pay. But the night she collapsed in the bed of the most feared billionaire in the city, everything changed. Because he wasn't supposed to see her. He wasn't supposed to notice her. And certainly not remember her face. Yet he did. And what happened next would turn both of their worlds upside down. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Gabriel Hale was one of the wealthiest men in the city. Cold. Calculated. Raised to believe emotions were weaknesses. A man who built empires but couldn't build connections. Someone who had everything except the one thing money couldn't buy. She was a quiet, humble housekeeper at the Grand Crest Hotel. She had never even been on a date. Someone who still believed kindness was a form of strength. A woman whose faith in God was the only thing keeping her standing when everything else tried to knock her down. How did their worlds collide? Why did he remember her face? And what secret did Gabriel carry that made him fear love more than failure? Maria had grown up in a small town just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. A childhood of warm memories, church bells on Sunday mornings, and hand-me-down smiles that cost nothing but meant everything. Her grandmother used to say that faith was the anchor when the storm came. And Maria believed her. She sang in the church choir. She helped serve meals at community gatherings. She prayed before bed every single night, even when the words felt heavy. But life can turn quickly. Her mother passed when she was 16. Cancer took her in less than 6 months. Maria watched her mother's body waste away while her father worked 3 jobs trying to pay for treatments that didn't work. And when her mother finally closed her eyes for the last time, something broke inside her father too. He couldn't look at Maria without seeing his wife's face. So 2 years later he left. No explanation. No forwarding address. Just gone. That left Maria to care for her little sister, Elena, who had been born with a congenital heart defect. The doctors said she needed medication daily just to keep her heart beating at a normal rhythm. Medication was expensive. Jobs were scarce. But Maria didn't complain. Complaining never fed anyone or paid any bills. She got up before sunrise every single day. She walked 2 miles to the bus stop because she couldn't afford a car. She cleaned rooms at the Grand Crest Hotel while others laughed, slept, rested, lived. She saved every dollar. She skipped meals so Elena could eat. She wore the same 3 outfits rotated throughout the week. She had never known romance. Never kissed anyone. Never gone to parties or dated or danced under moonlight. Her life was survival. And she carried it with quiet grace that most people never noticed. But God noticed. Maria believed that deeply. Even when her hands were raw from scrubbing floors. Even when her back ached from bending over bathtubs. Even when she cried herself to sleep wondering how she'd make rent. She believed God saw her. She believed he had a plan. She just didn't know what it was yet. Meanwhile, Gabriel Hale lived in another universe entirely. Skyscrapers. Private jets. Business meetings where millions moved with a signature. Penthouses overlooking the city skyline. Restaurants where a single meal cost more than Maria made in a month. Yet inside he was empty. Hollow. A man who had mastered the art of appearing whole while being completely shattered. People saw his success. No one saw his loneliness. They saw his power. No one saw his pain. His father, Richard Hale, believed softness ruined men. Emotions were distractions. Vulnerabilities were weapons your enemies used against you. So Gabriel learned to speak only in orders. Never in feelings. Never in needs. Never in hopes. His mother, Evelyn, believed love distracted from legacy. Marriage was a transaction. Partnerships were strategic. Romance was for foolish people who didn't understand how the world really worked. So Gabriel grew up watching his parents live in the same house but separate lives. They attended charity galas together. They smiled for cameras. They never touched. They never laughed. They never loved. And Gabriel became exactly what they trained him to be. Successful. Respected. Feared. But nobody knew him. Not really. He could walk into a room and command attention. He could negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But he couldn't remember the last time someone asked him how he was doing and actually wanted to know the answer. He was 33 years old and had never been in love. He'd had relationships, sure. Beautiful women who wanted access to his world. But those relationships always felt transactional, calculated, empty. And eventually he stopped trying. He told himself he didn't need it, that companionship was overrated, that he was better off alone. But late at night, when the city lights glittered below his penthouse and silence pressed against his chest like a weight, Gabriel wondered what it would feel like to be known, truly known, not as a billionaire, not as a hale, just as a man. He didn't know that the answer to that question was scrubbing bathroom tiles 14 floors below him. Maria had been assigned to the top floor suites for about 6 months, the expensive rooms where powerful people stayed. Politicians, celebrities, business moguls, people who tipped well if you were invisible and complained loudly if you weren't. She had learned to move quietly, efficiently, like a ghost passing through their world without leaving a trace. One Thursday evening in late September, she entered Suite 2401, Gabriel Hale's room. She knew his name because the hotel manager had given explicit instructions. This guest was a permanent resident. This guest expected perfection. This guest could have you fired with a single phone call. He wasn't expected back for hours. She had checked the schedule. He had meetings across town until at least midnight. So Maria worked slowly, methodically, with aching feet and heavy eyelids. She vacuumed the carpet, dusted the furniture, changed the bedsheets, scrubbed the bathroom until the marble gleamed. And then she made a mistake. She sat down. Just for a moment. Just to catch her breath. She'd been on her feet for 13 hours already. Her shift didn't end for another hour. But her body was screaming for rest. So she sat on the edge of the bed. Just for 60 seconds, she told herself. Just long enough to stop the room from spinning. But exhaustion is a thief. It steals moments. It steals consciousness. It steals choice. Maria's eyes closed. Her breathing deepened. Her body slumped sideways onto the fresh white sheets. She didn't even feel herself drifting. One moment she was sitting. The next moment she was gone. Asleep in a billionaire's bed. Shoes still on. Uniform wrinkled. Face peaceful in a way it never was when she was awake. And then the door clicked. Gabriel walked in. His meetings had been cancelled. Some crisis overseas that required his immediate attention via video call. He was tired. Irritated. Ready to pour himself a drink and deal with whatever problem was threatening to cost him millions. At first he thought the hotel had made a mistake. Someone had broken into his room. He stepped closer, muscles tensing, ready to call security. But then he saw her. Really saw her. A young woman asleep on his bed. Hands folded near her chest. Dark hair spilling across the pillow. Face so peaceful it looked like a painting. There was something innocent about her presence. Something unguarded. Something that felt like a memory from another lifetime. A memory of what peace looked like before the world taught him to armor himself against it. He stood there for a long moment. Just watching. Not with anger. Not with judgment. With curiosity. With something he couldn't name. He cleared his throat softly. Maria woke as if struck by lightning. Her eyes flew open. Confusion flooded her face. Then recognition. Then absolute terror. She bolted upright so fast she nearly fell off the bed. Words tumbled out of her mouth in a panicked rush. "I'm sorry, sir. Please. I didn't mean to. Please don't fire me. My sister. I need this job. Please. Please. I'm so sorry. Please." The fear in her voice was the kind of fear that comes from life kicking you too many times. The kind of fear that knows one mistake can cost you everything. The kind of fear that understands how fragile survival really is. Gabriel had fired dozens of employees before. Cold. Efficient. No hesitation. If someone didn't meet his standards, they were gone. He didn't lose sleep over it. He didn't think about their families or their struggles. Business was business. But this time something stopped him. Maybe it was the way her hands trembled. Maybe it was the desperation in her eyes. Maybe it was the exhaustion written across her face like a map of suffering. Or maybe it was something deeper. Something he couldn't explain. "Sit," he said. His voice was quieter than he expected. Maria froze. She looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "It's fine," he added. She stared at him, confused. She expected anger, threats, termination. But his voice was tired. Exhausted. Maybe as exhausted as hers. "Do you always work this late?" he asked. It wasn't an accusation. It was a question. A real question. Maria nodded slowly. "My sister is ill. She has a heart condition. The medication is expensive. I take extra shifts whenever I can." Her voice was barely a whisper. She was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Still waiting for him to tell her to pack her things and leave. But Gabriel just nodded. He didn't say anything else. He walked to his desk, opened his laptop, started working. And after a moment of stunned silence, Maria quietly finished cleaning the room and left. She expected to be called into the manager's office the next day. She expected termination papers. She prayed all night. God, please. I can't lose this job. Elena needs me. Please. But the next day nothing happened. No phone call. No meeting. No firing. Instead, something stranger occurred. Gabriel requested that only Maria clean his suite. Not any housekeeper. Specifically her. The hotel manager was confused but didn't question it. Gabriel Hale got what Gabriel Hale wanted. Word spread among the staff within hours. Whispers followed Maria down the halls. Some said he was just another rich man playing with someone powerless. Others said she was using her sweetness to trap him. A few said she must have done something inappropriate to get his attention. But Maria ignored them all. She had learned long ago that people would talk no matter what you did. The only opinion that mattered was God's. And she knew her heart was pure. From that night on, something shifted. Gabriel didn't speak much when she cleaned his room. But he was there more often. Working at his desk. Taking calls. And sometimes he'd ask her a question. How is your sister? Did you eat today? How long have you worked here? Small questions. Simple questions. Questions no one else ever asked her. And Maria answered honestly. Because she didn't know how to be anything but honest. She told him about Elena. About their childhood. About the church where she still sang every Sunday even though she was exhausted. About her faith. About how she believed God had a purpose for every struggle even when she couldn't see it. Gabriel listened. Really listened. Not the polite listening people do when they're waiting for their turn to talk. But the kind of listening that seeks to understand. And for the first time in his life he felt something crack open inside his chest. Something that had been locked away for decades. He didn't have a name for it yet. But it felt like waking up. If this story has your heart racing, comment, I'm still watching, so we'll know who's truly with us till the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Their connection grew in shadows. Quiet conversations while she changed linens. Gentle glances exchanged when their eyes met accidentally. Small, thoughtful gestures that neither of them acknowledged aloud. Gabriel started leaving envelopes on the desk. Far more than any tip should be. Maria refused them at first. But he insisted. He said, it's payment for good work. She knew that wasn't true. But Elena needed a new prescription. So she took the money. And she prayed. God, please don't let this be wrong. Please protect my heart. But Maria refused to let herself believe in anything more. She knew how life worked. People like him didn't choose people like her. Billionaires didn't fall for housekeepers. Fairy tales were called fairy tales for a reason. They weren't real. And she had learned young that hope could be the cruelest thing in the world when it didn't come true. So she guarded her heart. She kept her distance. She reminded herself daily that this was just kindness. Nothing more. And Gabriel, he felt something he had never felt before. But he didn't know how to feel it. He didn't have the vocabulary, the framework, the experience. His entire life had been about control, strategy, outcomes. But this, whatever this was, couldn't be controlled. It couldn't be strategized. It couldn't be predicted. So he watched her, listened to her, learned her rhythms. The way she hummed hymns while she worked. The way she smiled even when she was tired. The way she talked about her sister with such fierce love it made his chest ache. He began funding Elena's medicine anonymously. He found out which pharmacy Maria used. Made arrangements with the billing department. Ensured that every prescription was covered in full. Groceries appeared at Maria's door. Not grand gifts. Not designer clothes or jewelry. Small things. Practical things. Rice. Beans. Fresh vegetables. Things that mattered. Quiet care that didn't demand acknowledgement. Maria cried the first time it happened. She knew it was him. She didn't know how he found her address. She didn't know why he cared. But she knew. And it terrified her. Because kindness like that meant something. And she couldn't afford for it to mean something. Not when the gap between their worlds was so impossibly wide. This went on until Evelyn Hale, Gabriel's mother, noticed. She is refined, educated, powerful, and terrifyingly protective of the family legacy. Evelyn had eyes everywhere. She knew about Maria before Gabriel said a single word. She knew about the housekeeper, the conversations, the gifts, the way her son's entire demeanor had changed in recent weeks. She arrived at the Grand Crest Hotel one crisp October afternoon. Unannounced. She walked through the lobby like she owned it, which in a sense she did. The Hale family had investments in half the properties in the city. She asked for Maria specifically. Said she wanted to discuss the quality of service in her son's suite. The manager, confused but compliant, sent Maria to the private dining room where Evelyn waited. Maria walked in and knew immediately this wasn't about service. Evelyn sat with perfect posture, tailored suit, diamond earrings that probably cost more than Maria would make in 10 years. She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the smile of a predator who already knew the outcome of the hunt. "Sit," Evelyn said. Not a request, a command. Maria sat, her hands folded in her lap, her heart pounding. Evelyn poured tea like they were old friends, like this was a pleasant social call. The conversation was gentle, polite, deadly. "You are a lovely girl," Evelyn said. Her voice was smooth, controlled. "I can see why my son is drawn to you. You have a certain sweetness, a purity perhaps. But Maria, dear, my son's world is not for you, and yours is not for him." Maria said nothing. She just listened, hands trembling slightly. Evelyn continued, softer now, almost motherly. "People like you get crushed in families like ours. The scrutiny, the pressure, the expectations. You would never survive it. And my son," she paused, "he would resent you eventually. For not understanding his world. For not being able to navigate it. For being a weakness others could exploit." Maria felt something break inside her chest. But she didn't cry. She didn't argue. She had learned long ago that arguing with powerful people was pointless. They always won. Not because they were right, but because they had the resources to make you disappear. She simply said, "I love him, but I will not allow myself to be his burden." And she stood and walked away. Evelyn watched her go, satisfied. She had expected tears, anger, desperation. But Maria's quiet dignity was almost admirable. Almost. Evelyn made a phone call the moment Maria left. Arrangements were made. Money was transferred. A plan was set in motion. That night, Maria packed her bags, took Elena, and disappeared. She didn't tell anyone where she was going, closed her bank account, walked away from the only job she had, because she knew that loving Gabriel would destroy him. His mother was right. She would become a weakness, a target, a liability, and she loved him too much to let that happen. No note, no goodbye, no explanation, just gone, like she had never existed at all. Gabriel returned to the suite 2 days later and felt the absence like a wound. The room was clean, perfectly clean, but it was wrong. The air felt wrong. The silence felt wrong. Maria wasn't there. He asked the manager. Was told she had quit. No notice. No explanation. Just stopped showing up. He searched. Everywhere. Every contact. Every address. Every hospital in the city. He called her phone. Disconnected. He went to her apartment. Empty. Landlord said she'd paid through the end of the month and left. No forwarding address. He searched every church in Charlotte. Asked if anyone knew Maria and Elena's whereabout. No one did. Or if they did, they weren't talking. For the first time in his adult life, Gabriel felt helpless. Truly helpless. He couldn't buy information. He couldn't leverage connections. He couldn't force the universe to give him what he wanted. Maria had vanished. And he realized with crushing clarity that he loved her. Not the idea of her. Not the novelty of her. The woman who hummed hymns while she worked. Who talked about faith like it was oxygen. Who loved her sister more than life itself. Who saw him as a person instead of a bank account. He loved her. And she was gone. Weeks passed. Gabriel stopped sleeping. Stopped eating properly. Threw himself into work because it was the only thing that distracted him from the ache. His mother watched with quiet satisfaction. She had won. Maria was gone. Gabriel would move on. The family legacy was secure. Until Gabriel found the hospital receipt. It was tucked inside a folder his assistant handed him. Financial documents from one of the Hale Foundation's charitable contributions. And there, among dozens of other receipts, was one from Carolina Heart Center. A payment for Elena's full treatment. Surgery. Medication. Follow-up care. Everything. Paid in full. Dated 3 days after Maria disappeared. Gabriel stared at it. Something cold settled in his stomach. He called the hospital. Asked who had authorized the payment. Was transferred 3 times before he got an answer. The payment came from Evelyn Hale. Personal account. Direct transfer. Gabriel sat in his office for a long time. The city lights glittered below. The silence pressed against him. And he understood. His mother had offered to pay for Elena's entire treatment. In exchange for Maria's disappearance. She had used the one thing Maria loved more than anything, her sister's life. And Maria had chosen Elena. Of course she had. She would always choose Elena. Gabriel felt something inside him harden. Not anger. Something colder. Clear. He picked up his phone. Called his mother. Told her he was coming over. No. She was surprised but agreed. But when Gabriel walked into his parents' home that night, he didn't sit down. He stood in the center of the living room and looked at his mother with eyes she didn't recognize. Eyes that were no longer cold. Eyes that were on fire. You had no right, he said. His voice was quiet, controlled. But underneath it was a rage so deep it made Evelyn step back. I was protecting you, she said. From a girl who would have ruined your life. Gabriel shook his head. You were protecting yourself. From the possibility that I might actually be happy. That I might actually choose something you didn't approve of. That I might actually become someone you couldn't control. Evelyn's face hardened. She is beneath you, Gabriel. You know this. I raised you better than that. Gabriel laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. It was bitter. Broken. You raised me to be empty, he said. You raised me to believe that love was weakness. That emotion was failure. That the only thing that mattered was legacy and power and control. And I believed you. For 33 years I believed you. But Maria showed me something different. He stepped closer. His voice dropped. She showed me what it looks like to be strong. To sacrifice everything for someone you love. To choose kindness when life gives you every reason to be bitter. To have faith when the world tells you to give up. She is not beneath me, mother. She is everything I should have been. Evelyn said nothing. Gabriel continued. I'm done. With this family. With this life. With pretending that money and power and status mean anything when you're completely alone. I'm going to find her. And when I do, I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving to her that she was right to believe in love. Even when I didn't. He turned and walked out. Evelyn called after him. Threatened to cut him off. Disinherit him. Destroy him. But Gabriel didn't look back. For the first time in his life, he didn't care what she thought. Because Maria had taught him something his mother never could. That the only thing worth having in this world is something you can't buy. And he'd lost it. But he was going to get it back. Or die trying. 2 months passed. Elena got better. The surgery was successful. Her heart was stronger than it had been in years. Maria found work in a quiet bakery just outside Asheville. A small town nestled in the mountains. Far from Charlotte. Far from Gabriel. Far from everything she had known. The owner was a kind older woman named Ruth who asked no questions when Maria showed up looking for work. Just said the bakery opened at 5 in the morning and paid minimum wage. Maria said that was perfect. She woke every morning before dawn. Walked through the quiet streets while the world was still sleeping. Unlocked the bakery. Turned on the ovens. Kneaded dough. The work was hard. Physical. But there was something meditative about it. Something healing. She shaped loaves with her hands and thought about how God shaped broken things into something beautiful. She prayed while she worked. Thanked him for Elena's health. Asked him to give her strength. Begged him to help her forget Gabriel. But forgetting wasn't possible. She thought about him constantly. Wondered if he was okay. Wondered if he thought about her. Wondered if she'd made the right choice. Elena was alive. That was what mattered. That was the only thing that mattered. But Maria's heart still ached in a way that prayer couldn't fix. Ruth noticed. She didn't ask. She just patted Maria's shoulder sometimes and said, God's timing is perfect, child. Even when we can't see it. Maria wanted to believe her. She really did. But faith felt harder now. Like trying to hold water in her hands. It kept slipping through her fingers no matter how tightly she gripped. She still went to church every Sunday. Still sang in the choir. Still smiled at people who asked how she was doing. But inside she felt hollowed out. Like someone had reached into her chest and taken something essential. Something she would never get back. One rainy morning in early November, the bakery was quiet. Most people didn't venture out in the rain. Maria was wiping down the counter when the bell over the door chimed. She looked up. And her heart stopped. Gabriel stood there. Soaking wet. Hair plastered to his forehead. No suit. No entourage. Just a man. Exhausted. Desperate. Broken. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. They just stared at each other across the small bakery like they were both afraid the other might disappear. Finally, Gabriel took a step forward. Then another. Until he was standing right in front of the counter. Maria's hands were shaking. She gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. How did you find me? She whispered. Gabriel smiled. But it was sad. Tired. I hired every private investigator in the state. Searched every small town within 200 miles. Visited 63 bakeries, coffee shops, and diners. Asked if anyone had seen a young woman with dark hair and the kindest eyes in the world. And 3 days ago, someone in Asheville said they knew a Maria who worked at Ruth's bakery. Maria felt tears building behind her eyes. "You shouldn't have come," she said. "Your mother was right. I don't belong in your world. I would just be a burden. A weakness someone could use against you." Gabriel shook his head slowly. His eyes never left hers. "I didn't come to take you back to my world," he said quietly. "I came to ask if I could stay in yours." Maria blinked. "What?" Gabriel continued. "I don't want the penthouse. I don't want the meetings or the deals or the empire. I don't want any of it if it means being without you. I've spent my entire life building something that means nothing. But you, Maria, you showed me what actually matters. Faith, love, sacrifice. Choosing someone else's happiness over your own. That's strength. That's what I want. That's who I want to be." Tears were streaming down Maria's face now. She couldn't stop them. "But Gabriel, your family, your company, everything you've built." He smiled. A real smile. "I gave it all to my mother. She can have the legacy, the control, the empire. I don't need it. I never did. What I need is you. If you'll have me." Maria couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. Her heart was too full. She had prayed for so long. Begged God to help her forget. To move on. To stop loving Gabriel. But maybe she'd been praying for the wrong thing. Maybe God's plan wasn't for her to forget. Maybe his plan was for Gabriel to find her. Ruth appeared from the back room. She'd been listening the whole time. She looked at Maria with knowing eyes. "Go on, child," she said gently. "God brought him all this way. Don't make him wait any longer." Maria looked at Gabriel. Really looked at him. This man who had given up everything to find her. Who stood in her small bakery soaking wet and completely vulnerable. Who was offering her not his world, but himself. She stepped out from behind the counter. Walked toward him slowly. And when she was close enough to touch him, she whispered, "I loved you the moment you didn't fire me. I've loved you every day since. I tried to stop. I couldn't." Gabriel reached out. Cupped her face gently in his hands. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of that love," he said. And he kissed her. Soft. Tender. Like he was holding something sacred. Like he was finally home. They stood there in the quiet bakery while rain tapped against the windows and Ruth hummed to him in the back room. And Maria thought about all the prayers she'd prayed. All the nights she'd cried. All the time she'd wondered if God was even listening. And she realized he had been. The whole time. He'd just been writing a better story than she could have imagined. Because sometimes God answers prayers by giving you exactly what you need, even when you're asking for something else. And what Maria needed wasn't to forget Gabriel. What she needed was for Gabriel to become the man who would cross mountains to find her. And he had. "Let me ask you something. Would you have left like Maria did? To protect someone you love? Even if it meant losing your own happiness? Or would you have stayed and fought? Tell us in the comments. Your voice matters here. We want to know how you would have handled this. What you would have done. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And if this story touched you, if it made you feel something, stay with us. There are more stories coming. Stories of courage, love, faith, betrayal, redemption, and the human heart. Maria and Gabriel didn't have a fairy tale ending. They had something better. They had a real one. Gabriel got a job at a construction company in Asheville. He worked with his hands for the first time in his life. Came home tired and dirty and happier than he'd ever been. Maria kept working at the bakery. Elena moved in with them. They lived in a small apartment above a hardware store. They attended church every Sunday. They prayed together every night. They built a life that wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And sometimes, late at night when Elena was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Gabriel would hold Maria close and whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for proving that love is always worth the risk." Because that's the truth, isn't it? Love is always worth the risk. Even when it's terrifying. Even when it hurts. Even when it costs you everything. Because a life without love isn't really a life at all. It's just existence. And we were made for more than that. So subscribe for more powerful stories that remind you what it means to be human. We'll see you in the next one.